Hi, and welcome back to my channel, where I'm going to cover the fighter's martial archetype of the Purple Dragon Knight class specialization from the Swords Coast Adventurer's Guide. I will be providing a brief description of the subclass, as well as explain and set up the various features gained. The Purple Dragons originate from the Kingdom of Cormyr in the lands of the Forgotten Realms. They are knights who protect the crown and kingdom, as well as the peoples of that kingdom from the evils of the world to the best of their ability. This is also one of the few subclasses that actually has an alternative subclass name, as it is meant to represent a knighthood in general, and that other subclass name is a Banneret. However, regardless of your intention to side with the Crown of Cormyr or become a knight from another kingdom, the concepts portrayed in this class specialization are the same. If your character is also going to become a Purple Dragon Knight, there is also a restriction on the character background that you can take. And this is because of the skill requirements in relation to dealing with anything related to the royal court or a court of any kind within the Kingdom of Cormyr. Although if your character is going to be acting as an envoy of Cormyr, then this would also apply to any other court that you might have to attend and any other royal function that you might have to spend some time at. The background in this case is called Knight of the Order, and it can be found in the Backgrounds tab right here. It is a background that is provided by the D&D Swords Coast Adventurer's Guide, and it relates directly to this particular subclass, and that's because it's going to give you some of the skills that you will need as that knight. And again, this comes into play only if you're looking at actually becoming a Knight of the Order specific to the Purple Dragons themselves. And of course, if you're going to go with the Banneret concept in relation to the class specialization, the other backgrounds that might be applicable here could be Noble, Noble Knight, or any of the other backgrounds that are very similar in that structure between the Knight of the Order or the Noble Knight concept. Now, none of this means that you cannot convince a dungeon master of being able to use another background, as it would really introduce a way to bring new blood into the concepts of the Order. But the overall intent is that this background has the supporting features to allow your character to operate within that kingdom's locale and gain its full benefits. So let's go ahead and look at how we apply our class specialization and then begin to go through the process of looking at the various features. Fighters are a class that get to choose their specialization at level 3, which means that your character is going to have a couple of levels where you're going to get used to being a fighter before you have to go through and figure out what you actually want to become in relation to your class specialization. But there are going to be a couple of things in mind that you should consider if you're going to go ahead and take this particular class specialization. As a Banneret or Purple Dragon Knight, your character is expected to be somewhat charismatic, in addition to being quite strong and have a good constitution. And that mostly stems from the fact that the knights of this kind will also need to be as fluent on the courts and in social circles as they are within the field of battle. This essentially means that your character is going to have 3 important ability scores that you're going to have to keep in mind: their strength, their constitution, and their charisma. However, let's move on to an example of actually leveling our character up. So I'm going to go ahead and apply our class and drop it into place. And then I'm going to make sure that I choose the Purple Dragon Knight here as our class specialization. And the first feature that your character is going to gain is going to be Rallying Cry, and you can see it happens at level 3. And it's designed to enhance your use of the Second Wind feature such that your character is not the only one to benefit from the extra health. Going forward, when your character uses Second Wind, you'll be able to select up to 3 allies that are all within 60 feet of your character and heal them at the same time that you heal your own character. However, these allies must be able to see or hear your character. Or actually, to be more precise, your character must be able to see or hear them. The amount healed is not as much as what you potentially heal yourself for, as it is equal to your character's fighter level, but over time that becomes quite powerful because you can get up to 20 points as your total amount of healing that you can do to all of your other party members, or at least up to 3 of them. And because of that, this actually is an effect that's going to be fairly straightforward to be able to add to our character sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that into place. And we can see here that it's already set up, but I'm going to move this into a group called the Purple Dragon Knight. And that's just to ensure that we know what our base class skills are versus what our class specialization skills are. The way this feature works is as follows. When your character goes through and executes a heal on themselves, much like this, your character is going to be able to target 3 allies, up to 3 allies. And then what I can do is execute this heal on all of those particular characters. At fighter level 7, your character is going to gain the Royal Envoy feature, and it is a feature where your charisma stat is going to definitely come into play. At the time that your character gains this feature, they will gain double proficiency with the persuasion skill, even if your character doesn't have that skill yet. However, if your character already has proficiency with the skill, then your character can choose to become proficient with the animal handling, insight, intimidation, or performance skills and still be able to gain the double proficiency within the persuasion skill. I honestly do not know what skills I am proficient with this particular character because I created this character almost a year and a half ago when I started doing these class videos. So I do have proficiency with persuasion already. I'm going to add insight to this, and then I'm going to become double proficient with persuasion. And that's essentially what would happen if you were in a very similar situation. If you didn't have a proficiency within the persuasion skill, you would just double click it until you got to the double stars here. In fact, you might have to click it 3 times. I think there's a half star that comes into play there as well. And then you wouldn't be able to choose another skill. So you either become double proficient in this, or if you already have it, become double proficient and then choose another skill that we already listed and become proficient in that as well. At fighter level 10, your character is going to gain the Inspiring Surge feature. In this case, when your character uses the Action Surge, you'll be able to choose an ally who is within 60 feet of your character and who can see or hear your character and grant them the means to make one melee or ranged attack utilizing their reaction. Essentially, this means that as soon as you've used your Action Surge and completed your actions by doing so, the designated ally can make their attack and it will use their reaction to do so. This consumes that reaction for the remainder of their turn, as if they had made an attack of opportunity, and to be honest, they are essentially making an attack of opportunity because your character is providing them the means to do so. This feature also improves a little bit more at level 18 in that you'll be able to actually do this to 2 allies as opposed to just 1 once you hit that level. And while this feature does not necessarily need to be used from the Actions tab, it is definitely something that you probably will want to look at adding here just so that you can indicate to the Dungeon Master why a particular companion of yours is actually going through and being able to actually do what they're about to do. So having it here, all you do is you click this, and then the character can execute their attack utilizing that function. So the way this would work is as follows. When you've burnt through all of your actions and you execute Action Surge, you can then choose one of your 2 allies here as long as they are within 60 feet of your character and can see or hear you. You can then say, the cleric can now use their reaction to make an attack against this, let's say, Meanlock, for example. So I would click Inspiring Surge, and then the Dungeon Master would move the token down to the cleric. And then the cleric would then be able to go ahead and make their attack against the Meanlock. I'm going to, I already had it targeted apparently. Just going to use a melee attack. Oops, and I rolled damage for a miss, but that's fine. But you get the point, is that the whole concept is that your character is temporarily granting the cleric or the druid or another ally the means to execute a reaction to make a melee or range-based attack. It cannot be a spell attack, just as an FYI. And that is because the time to cast a spell doesn't fit within the time that is expected to take place for a reaction. The final feature your character is going to gain is called Bulwark, and this is going to happen at fighter level 15. This feature is going to extend the capabilities of the Indomitable feature towards an ally, much like the other skills have done for Action Surge or Second Wind. In this case, if your character is making a saving throw against anything that requires an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma-based saving throw, and they've used the Indomitable feature because they failed that saving throw, then your character is going to be able to select an ally that is being affected by the same effect and allow them to also re-roll their same saving throw. Once again, they must be within 60 feet of your character as well as being able to see or hear them. However, once the roll has been completed, they must use that new roll. So if the roll is worse, then it won't really be any help. But if the new roll is enough to make that saving throw, then you've essentially granted them advantage on their saving throw. This is another skill that doesn't really have an actionable trigger of any kind, but I'm going to go ahead and add it here anyway. And that is primarily because when you go through and execute this particular saving throw or the Indomitable feature, you're going to want to go ahead and execute Bulwark. So I actually don't have Indomitable added to our character yet, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now, if I were to use Indomitable, I would then execute Bulwark and maybe choose one of my allies to go through and re-roll one of their saving throws. And I'll show you how that works here in a second. I've gone ahead and dug out an adult white dragon, and that's because dragons have something called Frightful Presence, which is a wisdom-based saving throw, or characters within that particular range are going to be fearful of that particular dragon. It utilizes a wisdom-based saving throw for that, so this is applicable to our situation. I've already targeted all of our characters here, and I'm going to force them to roll a wisdom-based saving throw. Now, in our case, the fighter is the only one who failed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Indomitable feature in order for this fighter to try again. So I'm going to click on Indomitable. I'm then going to go here and roll a wisdom-based saving throw. And in this case, they managed to succeed. And on top of that, they will now be able to select either the druid or the cleric, who unfortunately in this case passed their saving throws, so we don't need to worry about that. But let's say that this druid had failed. Well, the druid can now also re-roll their own saving throw in order to go through the process of attempting to make the save. I'm not going to do that here, but that's essentially what happens. So because when the fighter actually goes through and uses that, they can select one of these two characters to go ahead and re-roll in the event that they also happen to fail that saving throw. In summary, this class specialization is all about inspiring others to keep in the fight or to actually go through the process of learning how to defend themselves. And that's what the Knights of the Purple Dragon or the Banneret were all about. They would use their deeds and their courage to help others fight their fears and inspire them to take actions necessary to fight for their freedoms as well as for their kingdoms. And it's nice to see this concept brought into a subclass that can help the rest of the party at the same time that the fighter themselves is taking advantage of their own features. However, this does bring us to the end of this video. I hope you found it useful and informative, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I want to thank you for watching this video, and if you found the information useful, click on that like button as well as leave a comment below, as it helps the channel gain exposure. Also, consider subscribing, as I release content similar to this topic quite regularly on the channel.